Hey everyone, welcome to the video. Just going over the 4-game NBA slate for today on Draftkings, and it's kind of odd. It's only a 4-game slate, and it kind of sucks because usually on Saturdays we get like 7 to 10 game slates, which are pretty strong, solid slates. And with this being Pro Bowl weekend, we get a nice 4-game NBA slate. So kind of a downer, but we're gonna break it down anyway. But before we continue, as always, if you guys could just leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. You also follow me on Twitter at Pennell16. And if you're interested in the spreadsheet that I'm going to be showing you guys in this video, links in the description below for my Patreon, as well as my Discord chat, my cheat sheets, my core plays, my defense versus position chart, my projections, all that. Updated all the way up until lock because you guys' news can get hectic. I'm working a sweat here from like 6 to 7 p.m. every single night because of all that news. I got to update the minutes, my projected minutes. I got to update everything. And, you get my most up-to-date information. I try my best to be able to tell you guys what could possibly happen by 7 p.m., but we never have any idea what's actually going to end up happening by 7. So, that's where you'll get my most up-to-date information on my Patreon. And I did change my format, so if you did miss yesterday's video, we're going to be looking at my spreadsheet, just a little portion of my spreadsheet. Instead of going over to the DraftKings website, just so I don't have to do double the work and take notes and relay information that way. This way we can just look off of my spreadsheet and look at my early interest for the slate. So this is not the entire player pool here. It's kind of like my first look player pool of the guys I have interest in as of the night before. So obviously things can change, but I have some guys listed. So anyway, let's get into it. It's a 4-game slate, and there's no Vegas totals out. I believe the Cleveland Chicago game was out a couple places. I think it's at 217. That's all I was seeing at the moment. But up top, we're gonna start with LeBron. He comes in at 10,400. Now, I wouldn't say he's a lock on this slate by any means, but if you have the capital to spend up for him, he's fine. It's LeBron. He's always got 60-point upside. He's got 1.55 points per round this season, about over a 31.4% usage rate. Now, the matchup versus Philly is not great. They're actually one of the better defensive teams on the season. But it's LeBron. Really don't care about matchups. I mean, they do take a hit a little bit defensively with Joel Embiid being off the court, but doesn't really affect the guards too much. But LeBron, he's pretty much unguardable. But I will say he's not my favorite play on the slate. I'd much rather play Karl Anthony Towns here. He comes in at 10K. Gets not a great matchup versus OKC. They're actually one of the better defensive teams in the NBA. But they do struggle in two spots. I shouldn't say struggle, but relatively struggle, just to them. They are mid-pack versus point guards, and they are mid-pack versus center. So if we go over the defense versus position chart, as you can see, OKC is a very good defensive team. They are all the way down here as the 4th best defensive team overall. They rank 15th versus point guards, but then 4th versus shooting guards, 3rd versus small forwards, 1st versus power forwards, and then 9th versus center. So it's not like they're very bad versus centers, but it's one of their soft spots. And Karl Anthony Towns, he's one of those guys that I really don't care about matchups too much. It was a tough matchup versus Houston. As you can see, they're one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA, and they rank 9th versus centers, but Karl Anthony Towns still dropped 54 points last night versus them, and he also had 2 quick fouls, so I think he could have even had a better game as well. As for the pace, OKC does play pretty slow, which I don't like, but Minnesota is the 3rd fastest pace of play team in the NBA, so they should look to push the pace here a little bit. So I'd assume that would average out a little bit. And Towns, he's been great on the season. I think he's a pretty safe bet for over 50 fantasy points. He's got 1.52 points per round the season, pretty much right up there with LeBron. 29% usage rate, which is a little bit less, but he's also 400 less, and I like the matchup a little bit better here for Towns than I do for LeBron. And you get a little bit of a price discount, so Karl Anthony Towns at 10K, I think he's a very, very good play. He is my preferred spend up on this slate. And like I said, LeBron is not someone I have a ton of interest in, but I always wanted to bring him up just because it's LeBron. But you got, I think, better plays in Towns, LaVine, Drummond here, so I just wanted to point that out. But Zach LaVine, so I actually like Zach LaVine a lot here. So Larry Markkanen will be out for 4 to 6 weeks, and it's pretty much just going to be the Zach LaVine show here. Now, he had an okay game last night. I don't remember exactly what he ended up finishing with, but I want to say he got over 40 fantasy points. But he's been kind of on a tear recently. He's been scoring 40, 50 fantasy points pretty much every single night. Man, he gets a dream matchup versus Cleveland, one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. If we head over to our defense versus position chart, they rank 2nd worst, and you can see how bad they are versus guards. They rank 29th versus point guards, 30th versus shooting guards, 29th versus small forwards. They are absolute trash. Zach LaVine should be able to eat in this matchup. He gets the best matchup you can ask for. Now, Cleveland does play slow, but they are just so bad defensively. Teams can put up a lot of points on them in a hurry. and he's just going to be the main ball handler here. He's going to have a very high usage rate. Now, he's only at 1.18 points per minute on this season, but I really like the recent form that he's been playing with recently, and he has a 31.4% usage rate, which is the same as LeBron. He should be able to eat in this matchup. Does 9,200 feel a bit expensive for Zach LaVine? Yes, but he has been playing very well. Markkanen's out. He's going to be running the show here. It's a good matchup versus Cleveland. He's going to play all the minutes he can handle. Zach LaVine, I think he's one of the better spend-ups on this slate. And you can save about $1,200 off of LeBron. Now, is he as safe of a play as LeBron? No, but he's also a little bit cheaper, and I like his upside. So Zach LaVine, certainly on my radar. Now, Andre Drummond, he is the best play on the slate if he's a go. Now, I know he's dealing with a lip thing, but, it's not like if he's good to go, he's going to be dealing with a minutes constriction just because, or minute restriction just because of a lip. It's not like it's a leg issue. So as long as he's good to go, I got him projected for like 34 minutes, and it's a smash spot here versus Brooklyn. And Drummond should never be 9,100. That's just a simple mispricing. I mean, even when he's 9,500, 9,600, I still feel like it's a little bit too cheap. I think he should usually be above 10K, but 9,100, that is absolutely way too cheap. He should not be less expensive than Zach LaVine. And if he's good to go, he is my lock of the slate at 9,100. He gets a great matchup versus Brooklyn, and it's also a nice pace-up spot as well. As you can see, the Pistons, they play pretty slow. They're 19th in pace of play, but Brooklyn is 6th in pace of play, so should look to push the pace here, and it's a really good spot versus Brooklyn. Now, they're not like a dumpster fire defensively, but they struggle versus point guards, and they struggle versus centers. As you can see, Brooklyn is 27th versus point guards and 28th versus centers, and they're actually pretty solid versus shooting guards, small forwards, power forwards, but they suck versus big men. 28th, and Andre Drummond, man, he has a 20-20 upside every single time he's on the court, and perfect matchup here versus the Nets. And on the season, he's at 1.4 points per minute, 24.8% usage rate. He's a very strong play on this slate. Kyrie Irving, he's fine. He actually ended up burning me a couple nights ago. I believe he was like 60% owned, but still ended up burning me. He had that nice snowflake on Draftkings. I want to say he had 38 points? 35, 38 points. Not end up playing that well, but it is a good spot versus Detroit here, and his minutes are going to be fine. I got him projected for 33.5 at the moment. And, Brooklyn plays fast. So I always like, having teams that play fast, having players on teams that like to play fast. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. But Kyrie Irving, he's at 1.43 points per minute on the season. He's got a 32.2% usage rate, 8,700. Now, his price came up a little bit despite him having a pretty bad game versus the Lakers, but that is a pretty tough matchup versus the Lakers. And then versus Detroit, this is a really good matchup. As you can see, they are 11th versus point guards, 19th versus shooting guards. It's actually not that, they're actually okay versus point guards, but they're still not that great of a defensive team. And Kyrie Irving, he's not really someone I worry too much about matchups. So 8,700, pretty nice price for Kyrie Irving. So I certainly will have interest as of right now. Kevin Love, I think this game's going to be pretty solid for fantasy purposes, and it's just a great matchup down low for Kevin Love. Chicago, I say it every single time when I talk about big men versus Chicago, they are just downright awful versus big men, as you can see. Just the bright green 30s here for Chicago. They rank 30th versus power forwards and 30th versus centers. They get absolutely eaten alive down low by power forwards and centers, and obviously Kevin Love qualifies in that category. And Love's been okay this season. If the game's competitive, he's going to play about 35 minutes, if not more. And I think this game should stay pretty competitive. And on the season, he's at 1.15 points per minute, 23.5% usage rate. Love the matchup for him. And I think he's a pretty safe bet for 35-plus points as long as the game stays competitive. So Kevin Love, I think he's a very strong play. You could, run it back with Zach LaVine, and I think that's a pretty decent GPP pairing or just even cash game pairing. SGA, he's not my favorite play in the world, but he's going up against Minnesota. It's going to be a nice pace-up spot here for the Thunder. They play at the 19th fastest pace of play on the season, but Minnesota, they play very, very fast. They're third in pace of play, and it's a pretty solid matchup. It's not like it's an absolute dream matchup, but Minnesota does rank 18th versus point guards, 26th versus shooting guards, 22nd versus small forwards. So pretty solid matchup. It's actually close to a dream matchup. 26th versus shooting guards, but pretty good spot here. He's been about mouth's really dry. He's been about a point per minute guy in the season, 0.98 points per minute, 24% usage rate. He's been playing pretty well recently. So SGA, he is on my radar. Derrick Rose, his price is really getting up there. He's at 7,500. He was 7,600 last night. I actually ended up playing him versus Memphis just because Andre Drummond was out, and he's over like 1.4 points per minute with Drummond out. And if Drummond's out again, I mean, you have to certainly have interest in Derrick Rose. Even if Andre Drummond is in, though, I'll still have interest with all the guys off for Detroit, like Luke Kennard, Blake Griffin. He's at 1.36 points per minute on the season and near 36% usage rate. I mean, he's been playing very, very well. He's extended his 20-point streak again last night versus Memphis. I believe he finished with 22 or 23 points, if I remember correctly. But pretty good matchup versus Brooklyn as a point guard. Like I said, they're actually okay defensively, but they do struggle with point guards and centers. As you can see, 27th versus point guards. And it's a pace-up spot for the the Detroit Tigers. As you can see, baseball's coming soon, so it's been on my mind. But versus the... I don't even know why I said versus Detroit, versus the Brooklyn Nets. And as just in total in the season, he's at 1.21 points per minute, 31.3% usage rate. He's been playing very well. 7,500 does seem a little bit much for Derrick Rose, but he's been playing very well. And I think he's a safe bet for 35 plus fantasy points. And do like the spot versus Brooklyn. So Derrick Rose is certainly on my radar. Chris Paul, he's actually grading as a pretty solid point per dollar option here versus Minnesota. And actually, the one time he did end up playing. He did play Minnesota. I think this is back in December. He ended up scoring 50 fantasy points. I happened to play him in that game. But I think he's fine here versus Minnesota. That's a nice pace-up spot. Pretty much what I said with SGA, and they do struggle with guards quite a bit. And on the season, he's at 1.13 points per minute, 22% usage rate. I think he's fine. I think he's a safe bet for about 30, 35, if not more, fantasy points. So Chris Paul at 7K. Do like the spot for him. Then continuing this trend with the Thunder, Gallinari, he's been playing pretty well recently, and he had a great game last night. I actually had him at 6%. No, it was 2% ownership. Gallinari ended up scoring 40 fantasy points. The Thunder put up 140 real-life points versus the Atlanta Hawks, but they absolutely balled out. Gallinari was a big part of that. But pretty solid matchup versus Minnesota. They're bottom 10 versus forwards, and he's been pretty well. He's been playing pretty well this season. 1.05 points per minute, 24.3% usage rate. I think Gallinari is a pretty safe, solid play at 6,700. I do like that he's a little bit cheaper than Chris Paul and SGA, and he's probably my preferred option between those three if you had to pick one. Jared Allen, now this is pretty much contingent on DeAndre Jordan news. As of right now, he is questionable. He did miss the last game, which made Jared Allen a lock for me, but it ended up not working out at all. I believe he only played, I don't remember how many minutes exactly he played. I want to say it was like in the low 20s if I remember correctly. I might be wrong. Anyway, I just played terrible. But he played pretty bad. Now, it was a tough matchup versus the Lakers. I will give him that. But still, he played pretty bad. But, well, the Ice Maker just scared the crap out of me. My gosh. I don't know if you guys heard that. Anyway, if DeAndre Jordan is out, we'd have to project Jared Allen close to 30 minutes, if not more. And it's a pretty solid matchup versus Detroit. They're one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. They rank 18th versus center, so it's not like they're like a smash spot when you're as a center versus them, but not a bad matchup either. We saw centers eat up Andre Drummond before this season. Jahlil Okafor, he absolutely abused him. And then Tristan Thompson, I remember recently, he absolutely abused him as well. Had over 30 real-life points. But Jared Allen, he's pretty good on a point-per-minute basis on the season. He's at 1.08 points per minute, 15% usage rate, which I really wouldn't expect Jared Allen to have a high usage rate anyway. But I think he'd be a pretty safe bet for a double-double. And the guy's got upside, too. He's the ultimate GPP play because the guy's got 60-point ceiling. He's also got like a 15-point floor, so he's pretty much all over the map, and his minutes are pretty sporadic as well. But if DeAndre Jordan's out, it makes him a little bit safer. So Jared Allen, just keep your eyes out for DeAndre Jordan news. Tristan Thompson, this is pretty much just all because of a matchup here versus Chicago. Like I said, if we go for the defense first position chart, Chicago absolutely sucks versus big men. They rank 30th versus power forwards, 30th versus centers. They also lost Larry Markkinen. I always want to say Mark Aiken. Larry Markkinen, which even, just gets rid of another bigger body on Chicago. So Tristan Thompson, I know he had a pretty bad game last time out versus Memphis, but I do think he can bounce back here. He's pretty much been a point-per-minute guy on the season, 18% usage rate. The guy's got upside, too. He's had some pretty monster games this season. He's also had some pretty bad games this season. But versus Chicago, he's below 6K. I think he's a pretty solid play on this slate. Nerlens Noel, he's pretty much contingent on Steven Adams news. He happened to miss the last game, which made Nerlens Noel one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. Actually graded out as one of the best point-per-dollar options for me. He crushed last night in the first half, and then in the second half, I think he scored, 1 or 2 points. I know he left the game like for a brief stint, but he ended up coming back. But he did not do anything at all in the second half. But the guy's really good on a point per minute basis. He's at 1.13 points per minute on the season. And with Steven Adams is out, that bumps him up a little bit even more. And I am projected for 20 minutes as of right now, but that's assuming Steven Adams is in. If Steven Adams is out, we could probably bump that up to 25 to 28 minutes. And I did become one of the better plays on the entire slate. It's a good spot versus Minnesota. They're mid-pack versus centers. It's a nice pace-up spot. We definitely have a lot of interest in Nerlens Noel. Larry Nance, he absolutely balled out in the last game. And I actually remember saying on my video that this is too expensive for Larry Nance. I will pass. Well, that bit me because the guy absolutely balled out. It's not like anyone played him, though, so it really didn't hurt me in that regard. But still, he had a very good game. And like I said, it's Chicago. Chicago is the worst team and one of the worst teams at rebounding, and they're the worst team versus power forwards, worst team versus centers. Larry Nance actually ended up playing 28 minutes. I believe he's played at least 26 minutes in 3 out of the last 3 games. So I like the minutes that he's been getting. I have him for 23.5 right now, but I think there's upside for more. So Larry Nance is on my radar. 5,300 is a little bit much for him, but I still think he's fine. He's been at 0.91 points per minute on this season, which is actually pretty solid, and he does have upside. So Larry Nance, I do like the matchup, and it's a 4-game slate, so we don't have many cheap options. As you can see, the lowest I have is Kobe White as of right now, but I don't mind Larry Nance. Christian Wood, this is just contingent on Andre Drummond being out. He smashed last night. He had 32 fantasy points. He became one of the best plays on the entire slate. In my opinion, the 2 best plays last night, just from a point per dollar option, were I believe were Christian Wood and Nerlens Noel. Noel ended up not working out. It looked great in the first half. I mean, he was fine. He didn't bust, but Christian Wood, he ended up balling out. A great game versus Memphis. And again, another good spot here versus Brooklyn. Nice pace-up spot. They do struggle with big men a little bit. And if Andre Drummond is out, I'd have to bump Christian Wood's minute projections probably anywhere from 24 to 28 minutes. And he's really good on a point per minute basis. As you can see, he's at 1.17 points per minute, 21.5% usage rate. If Drummond's in, no interest. If Drummond's out, Christian Wood would pretty much be a lock play on this slate at 4,700. Thaddeus Young, he's actually going to grade out as one of the best point per dollar options on this slate. He gets a great matchup versus Cleveland. As you can see, one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. They rank 20th versus power forwards, 23rd versus centers. And he's just going to be a pretty good play here. He's at 0.9 points per minute in the season. They got him projected for about 30 minutes. He was fine last night. I believe he scored 26 fantasy points, which that'll get the job done at 4,400. He should be pretty popular, and it's for a good reason. Larry Markkanen's out, so it just opens up some minutes and usage on the court, and Thaddeus Young is going to be one of the main benefactors of that, just like he was last night. So Thaddeus Young, almost said Trae Young. Thaddeus Young, he's a very solid play. Now, this is more of a pump play and just hoping for the best, crossing your fingers. But Kobe White, the guy's got upside. We know he's going to shoot the ball a lot. He's at 0.87 points per minute on the season. He's got a 23% usage rate. I just like the matchup versus Cleveland. And as of right now, we don't have a ton of value options. So Kobe White, I can actually see him getting some traction just because he's so cheap at 4,200. But it's an awesome spot here versus Cleveland. As you can see, they rank 29th versus point guards, 30th versus shooting guards. One of the worst defensive teams in the entire NBA. Kobe White, he's a fine pump play. But as of right now, that's as cheap as I would go. Hopefully some more value options open up so we can at least try to fit in guys like Towns, LaVine, and Drummond. That might be pushing it all 3. But I'd like to get 2 out of those 3 guys, Towns, Drummond, and LaVine. If I'm probably going to picture myself more than likely ending up with LaVine and Drummond as long as Drummond plays, but I could see a case for Karl-Anthony Towns and LeBron. Kind of just put them on there because he's LeBron, but I still think he's a fine play every single night. I mean, I can never talk you off of LeBron on a 4-game slate, so that's why I kind of put him on there. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for this video. Also, I want to talk about Overlay DFS really quick before we head out. So, OverlayDFS.com, sponsor of the show. It's a very simple, casual DFS website. It's, not for sharks. Sharks are not going to be on here and just attacking all these games. Trust me, they're not on here. I play here. They're not here. And there's no salary cap restrictions. It's pretty much just a pick-em-based website. It's as simple as it sounds. You pick whoever you think is going to score the most points. This is a screenshot of, or not screenshot. I'm on the, this is last night's slate, or today's, I guess it's 1:30 in the morning, so it's last night's slate. And you pretty much just pick whoever you think is going to score the most points. If you think Zion is going to score more than Favors, you'd pick Zion. If you think Rose is going to outscore Kemba, which obviously that didn't happen, you'd pick Rose. And whoever scores the most fantasy points in that matchup, you win. And if you happen to finish in the top 10% of the contest, you win 9 extra money. So say you enter the $22 double deuce contest, you'll end up winning $180. And they do pay out very quick. I've won quite a few double deuces so far, and they paid me out less than 24 hours on my PayPal account. So they are a legit website. They don't scam you. They're not a scam at all. I've been paid out very, very quick. They got some good people over there. And it's a pretty fun website. I wouldn't recommend this to you guys if I didn't play there myself. And check it out. OverlayDFS.com. They're also running a Slump Buster challenge where if you lose 20 days in a row, they will refund every single dollar that you played. And they also have a jackpot going. So if you go 12-0 in your picks, I know it might sound a little bit easy. It's not. But if you end up going 12-0 in your picks, you can win a jackpot of up to close to $7,000 as of right now. So 12-0 in your picks. I've been close a couple of times. I went 10-2, and just a couple of other changes I was pretty upset about. But it's fun to sweat the games. Check it out. OverlayDFS.com, exactly how it sounds. I put a link in the description below, but I don't want to get trouble by YouTube for linking a DFS website because I know other content providers have gotten in trouble for that recently over the past couple months, so don't want to risk that. But check it out, OverlayDFS.com. And if you want to use my projections to help make your picks, which is what I personally do, check out my Patreon. Links available in the description below. And without further ado, that's what I do in the intro. That's going to be it for this video, guys. Hope it was helpful. If it was, remember to leave a like. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. You also follow me on Twitter at Pennell16. If for some reason you want to follow me on Instagram, at cpen16. And like I said, my Patreon exclusive content is available in the description below. And I'll see you guys in the next video.